Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I just found out that the Goodreads Choice nominees for this year have just gone live, and I am so ready to do my top 10 predictions for this year. If you're new to my channel, this is something I do every year. I've done it for the last like 3 or 4 years, where I look at my most read genres, which are mystery, thriller, fantasy, science fiction, and horror. Also, apologies if you can hear the train in the background. Very close to a set of train tracks. But I look at those 4 genres and see if I can guess which of the 20 nominees will end up in the top 10 after the first round of voting. In previous years, I have always had greater than chance average on how many of them I get right. So that's very exciting, and I feel like it just gets harder every year because I've been less and less aware of what's been popular. So, one, I need to work on that, but two, I'm interested to see how it goes this year because I feel like of the years that I've done this, this is the one where I have least heard about the books that are coming out, the books that are popular right now. So I'm really curious to see how this is going to go for me this year. Before we dive in, I do want to admit real quick, I have looked at the nominees for the mystery thriller category. I tried to film this earlier today, and unfortunately, my filming got interrupted, so I felt like I needed to restart and kind of get my thoughts together, rather than jumping back in the middle because I couldn't remember what I had been talking about. So that's kind of where we're starting, and other than that, I haven't looked at any of the nominees, so we'll be seeing the rest of the nominees for the first time together here. So, we're just going to go ahead and dive straight in because we have a lot of books to look at. Okay, here we are. Let's hop back over to the Goodreads Choice and look at, we'll start with Mystery Thriller since it's the first one in the order here, and since I've already looked at it. So we have The Secret of Secrets by Dan Brown, Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson, Forget Me Not by Stacey Willingham, The Intruder by Frida McFadden, King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby, The Perfect Divorce by Geneva Rose, The Missing Half by Ashley Flowers, The Tenant by Frida McFadden, The Ghostwriter by Julie Clark, We Are All Guilty Here by Karen Slaughter, You Killed Me First by John Mars, Heartwood by Amity Gage, The Widow by John Grisham, The Crash by Frida McFadden, The Impossible Fortune by Richard Osman, Don't Let Him In by Lisa Jewell, Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man by Jesse Q. Sutanto, Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister, and Gone Before Goodbye by Reese Witherspoon and Harlan Coben, and finally, Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. I don't know why I tried to end early there. Anyway, those are our nominees this year. And the couple that I had already started to put on my list before, when I tried to film this earlier, were The Tenant by Frida McFadden and, where is it? The Impossible Fortune by Richard Osman. And this is my thinking on those two. For The Impossible Fortune, I suspect that people may vote for this even if they haven't read it, just based on the popularity and their love of the rest of the series. This is the 5th book in a series, and I know sequels don't always do super well, but I feel like the series is very popular, and so I think people may vote for this one even if they haven't specifically read it. My other previous guess was The Tenant by Frida McFadden. I may have already said that. I'm already like losing my place. We'll get my shit together soon. But I said this one because it's one of her 3 that's come out this year. And it's not the highest rated, which I think the highest rated is actually, I'm not sure where it ended up in this list here. One thing about it is it moves things between different times that you look at this. So The Intruder, I think, is maybe the most recent. It has the lowest overall rating so far and at the highest average rating. But then The Tenant has sort of middle of the road. It's the mid average rating and the mid number of ratings because The Crash has the most ratings. I think The Tenant is more likely to end up on the top 10 than The Crash, and I'm doing this because I am resistant to putting more than one Frida McFadden on the list. If I'm being honest, probably The Tenant and The Crash should both be on the list just because they have the highest number of overall ratings of all of the books. So maybe I'm talking myself into adding The Crash. I don't want to, because I personally don't like Frida McFadden's books, but I'm kind of leaning towards maybe I need to do that, just because she has the reach to get more than one book on the top 10. But the reason I put The Tenant on first is I think there's going to be a recency bias. The Crash came out at the very start of the year, so more people have had more time to read it, but I think people have most recently read either The Tenant or The Intruder, and The Intruder has a lot fewer ratings. So that's why I put The Tenant on the list, and I'm now increasingly thinking I should also put The Crash on the list, even though I don't want to. I do think there's a strong chance that we get 2 Frida McFaddens in the top 10, just because of the sheer number of people who have read it. So I'm going to go ahead and acquiesce on that and say that we're going to get both The Tenant and The Crash. And then also The Impossible Fortune. So that's 3 of our 10. What else? The other two that had really high numbers of ratings were, I think it's Don't Let Him In by Lisa Jewell, has 120,000, and then Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney was with 246,000. I'm having some trouble speaking today. My throat is really dry because of the weather changes, so please bear with me. But I think that both of these are very likely to be in the top 10, both because the authors are fairly well known and popular, and because of the rest of these that aren't Freida McFadden books, they have the highest number of overall ratings. So I think we're also going to put Don't Let Him In and Beautiful Ugly on the list. Okay, so now we're at 5. We have 5 more to choose. And I want to say John Grisham because he's another really big name. He's kind of almost a household name. But this book is so new. It's like tail end of October release. I don't think enough people will have read it to vote on it. So you could have a situation like I predicted with The Impossible Fortune where people like guess or like vote for it based on their love of his other work. But this one has like the least ratings of any of the books. So I think that even other books from authors with less famous names have a greater chance of ending up in the top 10. So we're going to go ahead and not put The Widow in. Now we do have Heartwood by Amity Gage, which I've heard a lot about. This has 62,000 ratings, almost 4 stars, which is pretty good. And I have heard several reviews of this that have been positive. So I feel like Heartwood could definitely end up in the top 10. Although I feel like it's going to be kind of the odd one out, because the rest of these I think are all from authors that I've heard of that have had releases in the last couple of years. Is this one a debut? I'm not sure. It's definitely not. Okay. So I haven't heard of anything else from this author. Okay, her last book came out in 2020. That said, I have heard, again, some pretty positive reviews. 3.94 is nothing to scoff at. So we'll keep that kind of in our back pocket as a potential. I also think that this Holly Jackson book could potentially end up in the top 10. It's got quite a few ratings with 76,000, and her YA was really popular. I feel like there's some recognition on the name just from that, and I think that that may help her kind of get over that hurdle into the top 10. Also have this Dan Brown one, but was this fairly recent? I don't remember. Yeah, start of September, and it's only got 54,000 ratings. So I think Dan Brown could make it through just on like name alone, but not as many people have read this one. So I think I am going to put Not Quite Dead Yet on our list. I think that has a strong chance based on the number of people who've read it, and the author's popularity from YA mystery thrillers. See, where did King of Ashes fall? This doesn't have as many overall ratings, but this would be... have I read any of these? I have not read any of the nominees this year. So this is extra hard because I don't even know how I feel about these. I would not be voting in this category because I haven't read any of them. I am currently reading The Widow and liking it, but haven't read them. I have heard good things about The Ghostwriter by Julie Clark. Doesn't have quite as many ratings as like The Secret of Secrets. Yeah, it's like 2,000 lower, so close, but not quite. This one I have been hearing good things about, and I think this one's been getting a bit of a push as well. And then this Reese Witherspoon one has not a lot of ratings, but I think Reese Witherspoon is very popular. She's very well known. Oh, this is another one that came out like very recently. This one's hard. The coming up with the last 4 is hard here. I did hear a lot of great things about this series, and specifically the sequel is supposed to be pretty good. It doesn't have quite as many ratings as some of the other ones, but it has a higher average rating than a lot of the others. 4.2 is a really good average rating, so I kind of want to put that one on the list. I haven't heard of this Geneva Rose at all, and oh, it has 200,000 ratings. And it's a sequel. That's interesting. That might be why it has so many ratings. Okay, so I think The Perfect Divorce has to go on here because it's got a generally good average rating with a 4.02, and it's got 200,000 reviews, or ratings, not reviews. So we're going to go with The Perfect Divorce, which is interesting. I had not heard of that one. I think I've heard of it. I haven't heard anything about it at all. So that was interesting. I feel like the Stacey Willingham could make it in there because I think she's made it into the top 10 the last couple of years. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think... Actually, we can check. I think it'll show me. Take a look. We're using all of our, our resources and deductive ability. Yeah, there's Richard Osman here. So she did not make it into the top 10 last year. Did she have a book out last year? I thought she did. She did not have a book out last year. Yes, she did. Only If You're Lucky. But I'd never heard anybody talk about that one. And I haven't heard anyone talk about Forget Me Not. So we're not going to put it on the list. I think that one is not going to make it on the list. Based on the fact that her book last year didn't. And I haven't heard anything about this one. John Mars is another person. He's got quite a few ratings. You Killed Me First. 3.97 is not bad. And 80,000 ratings is quite a few. It's kind of we get into these few that are like by names that are fairly familiar. But don't have quite as many ratings. I think I'm going to put the You Killed Me First one on here. Because I know John Mars is fairly popular as well. Yes, we have 8. We need 2 more. And this is hard because there's a couple that I want to put on. But I think I don't know if they're going to make it on is the thing. Because I think I've heard generally good hype for King of Ashes. But it doesn't have a ton of ratings. And I personally really like S.A. Cosby's writing. So I want to put that one on there. And I also kind of want to put Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man. But neither of those have as many ratings as some of the other books. So I feel like they're not going to make it. Oh, the new Gillian McAllister has 104.5 thousand ratings. So, yeah. Oh, it's a Reese's Book Club pick. Yeah, and it's a New York Times bestseller author. Okay, we're going to put Famous Last Words on the list too. I think that that's very likely. Again, lots of reach from having the Reese's Book Club pick sticker and the author having been on the New York Times bestselling list. I think that's a high likelihood. So then we're looking at our 10th book. I feel like it's going to be either the Dan Brown or the Karen Slaughter, just because the authors themselves are so well known. The Missing Half is also sounds interesting. Ooh, that has a lot more ratings than I thought. But it's not as well rated. So I'm leaning towards putting on the Dan Brown or the Karen Slaughter, but I think I'm going to go with the Karen Slaughter because I feel like she's well known. This one has more ratings, but it's less well reviewed. Not by a lot, but there's like a 0.4-0.5 difference between the two. And I feel like Karen Slaughter has the better kind of name recognition. We're going to go with the Karen Slaughter. We are all guilty here, but I'm not feeling super confident about this choice. I really feel like that last slot could be We Are All Guilty Here, The Secret of Secrets, The Missing Half, or Heartwood. I think any of those 4 could really be in it, but I'm going to go for the name recognition and we'll see what happens. I think we're going to go ahead and move on to fantasy. Okay. Some of these are familiar. Some of them are not. Quick scroll through. Okay. So we have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab, Brigands and Bread Knives by Travis Baldree, The Society of Unknowable Objects by Gareth Brown, A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. I don't know why my brain completely blanked there. The Strength of the Few by James Islington, Thief of Night by Holly Black, The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, Brandon Sanderson's When in Truth. I don't know why I reversed the order there, don't worry about it. Red City by Marie Lu, A Resistance of Witches by Morgan Ryan, The Sirens by Amelia Hart, Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber, The Everlasting by Alexi Harrow, King Sorrow by Joe Hill, Water Moon by an author whose name I cannot read there, Samantha Sato Yambao, The River Has Roots by Amal El-Motar, Emily Tesch's The Incandescent, again, not sure why I'm reversing that, The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson, Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher, and Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. So, there's a couple that I want to immediately put on there. When in Truth, the series is so popular. Also, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I feel like these were both really big releases this year from very popular authors. So I think they're kind of automatically going to get a lot of votes. So I am going to go ahead and put both of those on the list. And then also The Strength of the Few is a very highly anticipated sequel, but it's only come out very recently. So I don't know if it's going to have enough ratings. It literally came out like 2 days ago. So there's only 400 some ratings on it. So I think that as anticipated as that is, I'm not sure enough people have read it to vote for it. Although there may also be people who vote for it without having really read it. Joe Hill's a big name, but this one I think is also a pretty recent release. It's only got 2,500 reviews. Yep, October. So pretty recent. The Alexi Harrow has 3,000. I've been hearing great things about The River Has Roots. So I feel like this is a strong contender because I think this was kind of everywhere earlier this year. And I've heard pretty universally good things about it. It's got a 3.99 average, 27,000 reviews. Like, that's pretty solid for a fantasy book. I'm also, for the same reason I've added the other two, I'm going to add Catabasis to the list because it's a big release from a popular author, so I feel like a lot of people picked this up and read it when it came out. I have heard somewhat mixed reviews on Catabasis, but I think generally people are enjoying it, and it does have a 3.85. So I feel like that's a reasonable take. See, Watermoon was very popular a little while back, so it's got okay reviews and a significant number of ratings. I have not heard of A Resistance of Witches at all. I just heard about Red City recently. How did the Devils do? 42,000 ratings with a 4.25. I think that could make it in the top 10. Joe Abercrombie's another fairly popular author. I feel like a lot of people at least know his name. And I feel like this, as the first thing that he's written that's outside of the First Law, was fairly highly anticipated by a lot of readers, including people who were new to his work. So I'm going to also put the Devils on the list. So that puts us at 4 already. I selfishly want to put A Drop of Corruption on this list because I read this and loved it. And it actually has very good ratings. It doesn't have a huge number of ratings, but it's got a 4.49, which is awesome. But I think that's typically true of sequels because people who loved the first book are probably more likely to read and enjoy the later books. So I think that's probably true also of Brigands and Bread Knives, which does not have a lot of reviews. Is this recent? Yeah, okay, from like 2 days ago. Am I right on that? No, not even 2 days ago. It came out today. Today's the 11th. I don't even know what day it is. That's awesome. The Sirens has a lot of reviews for fantasy. Almost 42,000. 42,000 is one of the higher numbers here, I think. 18,000. 7,300. Okay, I think based on number of ratings, I'm going to put the Sirens on here. This is another one where there's a lot of people who read it. And I think a lot of people generally liked Amelia Hart's previous work. So we're going to go with the Sirens as our 5th pick. This is always hard because there's always a few authors that are just like, they always make the list. And it's hard to decide like what around them is going to get onto the top 10. And which of them, if there's more than 10 of them, of these kind of major popular authors, which of them is going to make it into the actual top 10. Watermoon, I think, got more mixed reviews, but I feel like this one was really popular earlier this year, so I think it stands a good chance of making it into the list. So we're going to go ahead and choose Watermoon, and I think I'm going to put The River Has Roots as well. These were both, like, fairly popular around the same time earlier this year, so I feel like there was a lot of kind of recognition for these two. So we're going to go with both of them. Ooh, we're getting down into our last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 3 more. I feel like Holly Black is popular, but the first book in this series was not particularly well liked. And so this, like, second book just doesn't have a whole lot of ratings. It's hard to pick, like, these two because they're so new. They're also super popular, and I'm wondering how many people will read these, or, like, they're in really popular series, so I'm wondering how many people will read these in, like, the next few days and be ready to vote prior to the 23rd, which is the end of the first round of voting. I think there's a significant chance that people could potentially read these two that quickly, especially the Brigands and Bread Knives. I think those are typically pretty short. So, like, it doesn't have a lot of ratings yet, but it does have a high average rating. And I feel like the previous couple of, I already had that open. I feel like the previous couple of books in this series have generally had a lot of ratings. 105,000, and that's for the second book. Okay. So the first book had 315,000, and then we have 105,000 people who read and mostly liked the second book. So, yeah, I feel like this is popular enough. It's possible that people might read that fast enough to vote for it. We're going to go ahead and put both Brigands and Bread Knives and The Strength of the Few on the list. I feel like those are going to be my iffiest guesses because they're so new. I think they both came out today, but I think there's enough people who are anticipating them that those people may, be getting their pre-order copies, reading it, and then voting for these, like, immediately. A Drop of Corruption does have almost 30,000 ratings and a almost 4.5 average. So I'm going to selfishly put A Drop of Corruption on this list because it's probably what will be my vote for best fantasy book this year. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think that it has a potential because people who are reading it really liked it. How many did the first book have? How many ratings overall? 65,000. Okay. So it definitely doesn't have as many, but obviously this is not how many this had this time last year. So, yeah, I'm gonna take a wild guess on that one and say A Drop of Corruption. And then we need one more. And I feel like of these, the one I've heard the most about is like Raven Scholar, which has quite a positive review, almost 4.5. 4.5 if we round up. Marie Lu is also popular, but this book's again fairly new. 20,000, but not quite as well reviewed. I think I'm gonna take a chance. Ooh, but Tea Kingfisher is really well known, and this one is also doing. It's not got quite as many reviews. So the Tea Kingfisher came out in August. This came out in April. I'm gonna guess the Raven Scholar, but I think that Hemlock and Silver is a strong possibility as well. But I think the Raven Scholar, only because it's been out longer, more people have read it, has very strong reviews. And I think that's our 10. Okay, actually, I've just miscounted. That was 11. So we don't need the Raven Scholar. We're gonna roll with that. I don't feel confident about these guesses. Okay, moving on to science fiction. Wow, immediately. I know almost none of these. So we have The Merge by Grace Walker, Hemajang Luck by Makana Yamamoto, The Compound by Aisling Rawl, Dissolution by Nicholas Binge, The Once and Future Me by Melissa Pace, and The Memory Collectors by Didi Meserve, These Memories Do Not Belong to Us by Yiming Ma, Luminous by Sylvia... It's a weird design, having trouble reading it. Sylvia Park, Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz, Salt Crop by Yume Kitase, The Book of Lost Hours by Haley Gilfuso, Death of the Author by Nadia Korafor, The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalami, Local Heavens by Kahim Fajardo, When the Moon Hits Your Eye by John Scalzi, The Poppy Fields by Nikki Ehrlich, Shroud by Adrian Tchaikovsky, I Think We've Been Here Before by Susie Kraus, I think. Yep. Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove. Again, hard to read that font. And The Shattering Peace by John Scalzi. So we got double John Scalzi this time. Okay. Well, I read none of these. I did check out Hemajang Luck, but I did not get a chance to read it before my library loan ended. So, we're just going to take a quick look real quick. This has almost no ratings. I don't think that's likely. Okay, 3,500 ratings. I have heard a lot about The Compound, so I feel like this is probably a strong contender. Dissolution, decent. What's on Future Me, I've not heard about. Memory Collectors is doing okay. A lot of these don't have very many reviews yet, or very many ratings. Automatic Noodle, I think, is probably a strong contender because I have been seeing this one around, and I think Annalee Newitz is somewhat well known. I've definitely seen other books of theirs that have made it into the Goodreads Choice. Got Salt Crop by Yume Kitase. I feel like this author's previous book was really popular, and I've seen this around a few times. Book of Lost Hours. Death of the Author would be my, like, gut instinct first pick because this was everywhere earlier this year. So I feel like, at least everywhere in my version of book social media, I was seeing it a lot. So I feel like that has a strong possibility. I feel like I just saw The Dream Hotel around a lot. And it does have a decent number of ratings, 27,000. Actually, I think I looked at this one at Barnes & Noble. We got Local Heavens. I think this was not John Scalzi's most popular release. So, that's interesting. The Poppy Fields has quite a few reviews or ratings. And I think Nikki Ehrlich has been fairly popular over the last couple of years since The Measure, I think, was the first book of theirs that I heard of that was fairly popular. Shroud, I think Adrian Tchaikovsky is a popular author, but this one's new. It was out much earlier in the UK, though, so, hard to tell. Because I think this was the Kindle edition in the UK, and it came out in February. So, a little harder to tell. I think we've been here before. Of Monsters and Mainframes is the one I think I've heard the most about. I've seen this around a little bit. So, I'm not sure. And then Shattering Peace is doing okay. I'm definitely, immediately off the bat, based on number of ratings and having heard of these a few times, I'm going to put Death of the Author, The Dream Hotel, and The Compound on my list. Compound has the most ratings overall, so I think it's definitely going to make it into the top 10. I think after that, because there's not a lot of ratings for a lot of these, I'm just kind of on my own here. So this is going to be kind of a weird selection of things. I'm going to be basing this more on, like, how many times have I heard about the author, how many reviews does it have, and just kind of general sense of it being everywhere or not. So, like, Shroud has a really good average rating and has a decent number of ratings in comparison to some of the others. So I think Shroud could make it. And Adrian Tchaikovsky is a fairly recognizable name. This has a good number. Nikki Erlich has more than several of the other authors, several other ratings than the other books. I think we're going to put the Poppy Fields on. I have not heard of this one specifically, but I have generally heard good things about Nikki Erlich's other work. So I think that could end up. This doesn't have very many ratings. I think it's new. Salt Crop. Came out in September, so not that new. Automatic Noodle has 7,000. So I do think Automatic Noodle could make it. So I'm going to do Automatic Noodle. And I think we'll also add Shroud. I definitely heard a lot about Monsters and Mainframes earlier this year. The Shattering Piece is, like, well into a series. I don't think it's as likely to get enough reviews. And John Scalzi's most recent book has not been as well liked, but it does have quite a few ratings in comparison to the other books. So I do think I'm going to add When the Moon Hits Your Eye and Of Monsters and Mainframes. So we need 2 more, I believe. Try not to rely entirely on, like, ratings numbers, but I feel like I haven't heard of basically any of these. That's got 6,000. That's kind of in the same range. And it's for fans of The Ministry of the Time and The Midnight Library, which I think were fairly popular last year. Or not last year, but like in the last couple of years. So I'm going to put the Book of Lost Hours. Kind of debating between I Think We've Been Here Before and, what was the other one? The Memory Collectors. Okay, so they have similar numbers of ratings. Let's look at the reviews. This is a 3.94 average rating. And this one has a 4.01 with a very similar number of ratings. Slightly more ratings, not many, but a few. So I think I'm going to do this one. I Think We've Been Here Before by Susie Krauss. Okay, we're good. I counted correctly this time. And we can move on to our final category of horror. I've heard of more of these. So we have Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Huang, You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White, The Lamb by Lucy Rose, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Don't know why one was so hard to say. We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad, Coffin Moon by Keith Rawson, Never Flinch by Stephen King, Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang by Kylie Lee Baker, Play Nice by Rachel Harrison, Breathe In, Bleed Out by Brian McCauley, Blood on Her Tongue by Joanna Van Veen, Bewitching by Sylvia Morena Garcia, What Hunger by Catherine Dang, The Haunting of Payne's Hollow by Kelly Armstrong, Hunger Stone by Kat Dunn, Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, or Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle, How Bad Things Can Get by Darcy Coates, The Possession of Alba Diaz, and When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. I have heard of, I think, all of these, so this is a lot more familiar territory for me. And it's going to be a hard one, because there's several authors here that I think typically make it in the top 10. So take a quick look at our ratings, average ratings and number of ratings. Oh, 23,000. That's more than I would have thought. Although I have seen The Lamb around a little bit. I feel like without even thinking about it, I'm going to put the Grady Hendrix on there because, one, this has 100,000 ratings, pretty close to 4.0 average rating. 3.92 is pretty good. And Grady Hendrix is just such a recognizable name. I think that he's likely to make it into the top 10. I feel like We Love You Bunny was highly anticipated, but then not very well liked. So you have a Stephen King. So the thing is, it's in a series. So I think Stephen King is probably going to have the greatest reach of anybody in this list. No, I take that back. Actually, Grady Hendrix has the greatest reach. But Stephen King is still very popular. But it's the 4th book in a series. So I'm not sure. Bat Eater did fairly well. Rachel Harrison. Heard of this one that doesn't have very many ratings. Oh, The Bewitching actually has fewer ratings than I would have guessed. It's been out for a while, and I think Sylvia Morena Garcia is fairly popular. Hungerstone, that was popular earlier this year. Buffalo Hunter Hunter I've definitely seen around a lot, so I feel like this one has a very strong chance. I'm gonna put a few of the like higher rating numbers just in here off the bat because a lot of these have under 10,000 ratings. So I think things that have more than 10,000 are very strong chances to get into the top 10 because there's just so many more people who've actually read them. So we're gonna go with Never Flinch. I'm looking at the kind of 20,000 above. Play Nice has a lot. The Bewitching has a lot. Buffalo Hunter Hunter has a lot. And When the Wolf Comes Home. I feel like Buffalo Hunter Hunter has been pretty well liked and a lot of people have read it, so we'll go with that one. Play Nice has also been read by quite a few people. 30,000, almost 31,000 with an almost 4-star average rating. So I think Play Nice is going on the list. And I'm going to put The Bewitching because that's another like recognizable name and it does have more than 24,000 or more than 20,000 reviews. The Lamb was also up there, right? Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and put The Bewitching and The Lamb. So we need 4 more. I'm trying to think of what I've heard a lot of people talking about. I definitely have seen When the Wolf Comes Home around a lot, so I think that one goes on the list. Nat Cassidy is fairly popular, and I've definitely seen The Possession of Alba Diaz around a lot. And then Chuck Tingle has not as many reviews because a little more niche, but I feel like has a lot of like social media recognition, so that could play a part in it. We're gonna go ahead and put When the Wolf Comes Home and The Possession of Alba Diaz. Darcy Coates is another well-known author, but this one doesn't have as many ratings. Ooh, 27 for Bat Eater. Okay, I definitely have been seeing positive reviews for Bat Eater. Let's add Bat Eater, and what was the other one I was just saying? Is it Hungerstone? Hungerstone also has a lot of ratings. Okay, that's 10 actually. I didn't realize it was that many. Okay, so we've already hit 10, and I feel like this one was another one where ratings have really, like, played a part, because there's some of these that I've heard really, really good things about, but there's just not that many people who've read them. And there's also books that have like pretty solid average ratings. They just have, you know, more than 10,000 ratings over the other books on the list. So I feel like those things that have a ton of ratings are much more likely to get voted on just because of that reach. There's going to be so many more people who are familiar with them who are going to want to vote for them. So that's it. These are our predictions. I'll run through them real quick so that we can kind of refresh our memories here. So for mystery thriller, we have The Tenant, The Crash, The Impossible Fortune, which I misspelled in my list, Don't Let Him In, Beautiful Ugly, Not Quite Dead Yet, The Perfect Divorce, You Killed Me First, Famous Last Words, and We're All Guilty Here. Then in fantasy, we have Wind and Truth, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, Catabasis, The Devils, The Sirens, The Water Moon, The River Has Roots, Brigands and Bread Knives, The Strength of the Few, and A Drop of Corruption. For science fiction, we have The Compound, Death of the Author, The Dream Hotel, The Poppy Fields, Automatic Noodle, Shroud, When the Moon Hits Your Eye, Of Monsters and Mainframes, The Book of Lost Hours, and I Think We've Been Here Before. And finally, for horror, we have Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, Never Flinch, The Buffalo Hunter Hunter, Play Nice, The Bewitching, The Lamb, When the Wolf Comes Home, The Possession of Alba Diaz, Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang, and Hungerstone. Okay, so those are the predictions, and I feel like I said this last year, but I'm going to say it again this year. This is the year that I am the least confident on my guesses across all of the genres. I would say probably my best guesses are for mystery, thriller, and horror, only because I was more familiar with all of the selections for those categories, but I really have no sense of how well I've done here. I think this is very possible. This is the year we see me do less than chance odds. So, interested to see how that's going to go, and I will meet you all back here after November 23rd. I think it usually takes them a couple days to like count up all the votes. So I'll see you here sometime after November 23rd to react to the top 10s and get a sense of whether I was right or not. So, that's all I have for you today. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments below what your prediction would be for whatever category you read the most. I'm really curious to see what people think is going to end up in the top 10. And I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting at least one video a week, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.